My friends, it has often been said that I like anime. Friends, I like anime. No, friends, I love anime. I love mecha. I love moe. I love mindfucks. I love outcasts. I love devils. I love distant planets and tsunderes. Friends, all I ask for is anime. An anime so grand as to make hell itself tremble. Friends, I ask you, as fellow nerds in arms, what is it you really want? Do you wish for better anime as I do? Do you wish for a merciless, bloody anime? An anime whose fury is built with iron and lightning and fire? Do you ask for an anime to sweep in like a tempest, leaving not even ravens to scavenge from this earth?
Well, I hope not, because Hellsing Ultimate isn't it. Like, don't get me wrong, Hellsing Ultimate is an epic piece of work. An epic piece of work that we have been waiting so very long for. But if you're looking for an anime that you can say is like the next Gospel of Hari or some such thing like that, then maybe you should look someplace else. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection today, after a very, very long delay. Hellsing Ultimate. Let's jam! Welcome to England. Not the most original of settings, I know, but it's a far cry from a Japanese high school. In this version of England, there exist supernatural monsters known as vampires. When vampires show up in media nowadays, especially considering how many different kinds of iterations there have been of vampires in the past, you start to do a little bit of a roulette in your head to try and figure out what traits and characteristics these vampires have now. What affects them? Garlic? Holy water? Stakes through the heart? What about crosses? Maybe they have an effect. What about silver? Sunlight? Does blood merely keep them alive, or does it serve a more supernatural, powerful purpose? Or, of course, are vampires merely fairies with a chastity belt? Hellsing takes its vampires very seriously, almost if there are like ranks and tiers to them, without actually officially acknowledging any sort of classification. You have the common ghouls, deflowered humans who are eaten by vampires and become a kind of mindless zombie. But then you have common vampires that are not much different from humans, except for the drinking blood and longevity thing. And then you have Alucard, Hellsing's pimp vampire with guns, who goes around shooting undead beings with silver-tipped bullets melted down from the cross of Manchester Cathedral. The goals of Hellsing are rather simple: kill all undead threats to the crown. Because, remember, Britain. Over the course of the OVA, the Hellsing organization is under threat from a variety of enemies. Common one-off vampires, the Iscariot branch of the Vatican Special Forces, and a mysterious group known as Millennium, who has the ability to produce artificial vampires, making an entire army of the undead for their own personal gain. Most of these fights between all of these forces get grander in scale as the show progresses, with higher and higher stakes each time, leading to larger and more dangerous battles, from one-on-one individual matches of skill to full-on armies duking it out for supremacy. In simple terms, if you want to watch an epic battle between supernatural beings, there is no anime that I can suggest to you that would be better than Hellsing Ultimate, because that is Hellsing Ultimate in a nutshell. Now, technically, it is also about characterization. Early on, and by that I mean the first major thing that happens in Hellsing, is the operation in the small town of Cheddar. A local priest there becomes a vampire and turns the entire population into ghouls. Hellsing sends an Alucard, and he kills everything, proving to people that he is the greatest badass in the universe. However, during the operation, in order to shoot and kill the evil vampire priest, Alucard has to shoot him through the body of police girl Ceres Victoria. In order to save her life, though, because he randomly felt like it, he turns her into a vampire before she dies. And because Alucard is a super awesome vampire, not just one of those common vampires, this gives Ceres a whole slew of new extra supernatural vampire abilities, which she gets to come to terms with. Or at least, I wish that's what happened. since we mentioned Sirius, we might as well start with her, but first, however, we should talk a bit about Hellsing and give you a bit of a background in case you just happen to walk in here without any knowledge of Hellsing whatsoever. Hellsing is a manga that was once before previously adapted into a 13-episode series by Gonzo back in 2003. At the time, however, there was much less original material to work with, so while there may be similarities between this original version and this new Ultimate version, ultimately, they are two entirely different shows. And I'm not just talking about the plot with that statement either. One would think that a big section of the plot would be devoted to the building of Ceres' character. She's a newborn vampire thrown into the world of undead ghouls with no experience in the matter. Yes, having a human come to terms with being a vampire is not necessarily groundbreaking as far as vampire stories are concerned, but while that concept may not be new, what makes each iteration of this concept new is the characters themselves. Immediately after waking up as a new vampire, Ceres is thrust, with no delay, into a new mission. No coping time, no real explanations, just, hey, you're a vampire now, which means you work for Hellsing, go kill things. Chop chop. You don't notice this as much if you've seen the story of Hellsing before, either by watching the original adaptation or reading the manga, but the amount of rushing that Hellsing Ultimate does is rather disconcerting. Next up is Integra Fairbrooks Wingate's Hellsing, a character whose name must be stated in full because of some unwritten law or something. As the current head of the Hellsing family, Integra's claim to fame is her ability to control the vampire Alucard. And I'm not gonna lie, 90% of the time that is her sole purpose. Sure, she's a level-headed, strong-willed, and perfectly able commander, but having said that, in the majority of the OVA, she is almost purposefully in a compromising position. Not like a damsel or distress or anything, far from it, but she's not really a genius strategist either, her favorite strategy just plainly being, hey Alucard, go kill everything, while she stands back and watches while smoking a cigar and sprouting exposition. Finally though, let's talk about Alucard himself. Alucard is what I would imagine would happen if Quentin Tarantino decided to make a real, proper, badass vampire protagonist. You know, none of this from Dusk Till Dawn stuff. He walks around the country like he owns the place, and nobody really says boo to him because they can't really do anything to him. Cut off his head, he reattaches it. Stab him in the heart, he just laughs in your face. He himself claims that immortality is a myth, but then shows multiple times to be completely unkillable. It's something of a downer when watching fight scenes too, because you already know who's gonna win. On the internet, people like to argue over who would win in some imaginary fantasy battles, and I always laugh when I see those, and when they have Alucard as one of the contestants, because he would win. No contest. He has no weaknesses, and he enjoys the art of killing like it's an art form. His only limitation, if you want to call it that, is that he is bound by the head of the Hellsing organization, in this case Integra. Fairbrook Wingate's Hellsing. Why he is bound to the Hellsings, they never truly explain in Ultimate, though there is this one scene where they allude to the fact that at some point in the past the Hellsings had defeated him, but rather than kill him, they forced him into a life of servitude. But that's the thing, really. Hellsing Ultimate is very much tell, don't show. Presumably because all the showing is reserved for the battle scenes. Integra's backstory lasts all of 5 minutes at the start of episode 1. Ceres gets nothing but a brief scene in episode 7 on her backstory, which disappears as quickly as it appeared. The focus of the show is always on the now. This now, of course, being the big giant battle in London. A battle so important, it took 6 out of the 10 parts of the whole series just to go into minute details of everything that happens in it. There's so much about these characters that they never bother to explain. Why is Walter their butler? What's the story there? Did Alucard meet Alexander Anderson from Iscariot before? Or did they just suddenly become mortal enemies when their who has the biggest dick contest didn't get finished when they met? Why does Cirrus Victoria take to her new circumstances so quickly without any complaint? These are good quality questions that they could have addressed, but didn't. Instead, the Battle of London is, of course, the most important thing that the show made sure you found out about and knew about in absolute detail. Everything else, that's just, well, kind of fluff. And now, counterpoint time. I've been fairly critical of more or less everything in Hellsing Ultimate so far. The plot as it is more or less one big, giant Rube Goldberg wet dream. This leads to this, which leads to this, therefore this. You don't really ask why you have an umbrella that pushes dominoes that do something that causes this machine to continue to function. It is the glory and the spectacle of the whole thing that makes it entertaining, and my god is Hellsing Ultimate a spectacle. Now, I may complain that we didn't get a proper story about Cirrus coming to terms with being a vampire, but that doesn't make it any less entertaining to watch her plow through hordes of the undead with the badass that is Pip Bernadotte backing her up with his suave French accent. That admittedly at times sounds a little bit forced. Shout out to Yuri Lowenthal. Now, here is where the show both excels greatly and was a minor disappointment in some respects. The animation for Hellsing is rather stellar. This should be considered a surprising thing, actually, mainly because different episodes were handled by separate production companies. The series has 3 separate directors, the script was also divided between 2 people, and yet, with all of that, the animation remained far more consistent than I would have expected given the circumstances. The action, being the show's focal point, is absolutely fantastic. Tie that in with some amazing atmosphere of the dark, bloody, and cruel world that Hellsing has, and you have just some great stuff right there. Granted, then there's the parts where the animation goes really cartoony and not really epic at all, really. But, you know, those are just there to alleviate the epicness, or something. Now, the music is where I am personally a little bit disappointed than I probably should be, but hear me out. As much as I rag on the original adaptation by Gonzo, and I do, like, I don't know if you can see that, mainly because my camera doesn't like focusing on things that are really, really close to its face, but here at the top there's this big giant crack that I've since taped up with Scotch tape. You wanna know where that came from? That was me slamming this case into the ground when I originally reviewed it way back when. I win. So as much as I rag on this thing, there is one thing that it has that Ultimate doesn't. Really kick-ass music. Like this show right here just has this style to the music that's just so much yes! Hellsing has always been about the rule of cool. And in that original series, Hellsing had this theme song that screamed, "Hi, I'm Alucard, I'm this show's resident badass." And when it wanted to be depressing, it was able to slow the hell down while keeping in line with the same style. Ultimate does have good music, I can't say otherwise because it would be a lie, but Ultimate focuses more on the overall epicness of the show. Orchestrations, Latin choirs, look up every quote-unquote epic music cliche in the book, and Hellsing Ultimate has it. And had I not heard the music from the original adaptation, I'd be praising the hell out of this one too, because if you know anything about my taste in music from anime soundtracks at all, it's that the stuff that Hellsing Ultimate gives us, I love this stuff. But in this rare case, the soundtrack from the original just gelled so much better with the story of Hellsing, in my opinion. And I was just sad we didn't get to see more of that, or rather, hear more of that. And the one last thing in the sound department that's identical from the original adaptation is, of course, the dub. Now, the dub is a gigantic plus point in my book. Now, the only somewhat well-known voice actor in the original Hellsing cast was Crispin Freeman, and I dare you, I double dare you, I, Baskerville Hound, dare you to find me a voice actor who could have done Alucard better than Crispin Freeman. Besides him, though, everybody else is there because they are literally the best voices that you could have possibly gotten. Both Victoria Harwood and Ralph Lister absolutely nailed the British Dame and Loyal Butler tag team, and KT Gray as Cirrus Victoria, just yes. Like, others may complain that she was too whiny, but they know nothing. She was great in this. Also, of course, there's Gildart Jackson for the blissfully evil portrayal of the Major. And lastly, everyone, please give a big round of applause to Mr. Taliesin Jaffe, Hellsing's ADR director and English scriptwriter, without whom the dub would be nowhere near as good as it actually is today. Thank you, good sir. So at the end of the day, I get to ask the following questions. Is Hellsing Ultimate an entertaining series? Yes. Do I recommend that you watch it? Yes. Does it have its flaws? Also very yes. This show is just pure unadulterated entertainment. You don't watch Hellsing Ultimate for character bios. You watch it to watch a vampire rip the face off a regenerating Catholic Wolverine with a death wish. It's not about Alucard going up against some two-bit villain who turns out to be actually rather sympathetic. It's about Alucard going up against an evil, kitten-killing, strategic mastermind and all-around asshole, which just makes it the whole thing infinitely more satisfying. Now, yes, the plot can be a mess at times, and it does get slowly worse as time goes on, but really, did you expect anything else? Hellsing Ultimate is woefully aware of its own existence, with countless references in it to other films, most of which some people probably won't even recognize. It knows that all it is action, and more action, and you know what? That is perfectly fine. Based solely on entertainment value as pure popcorn material, I heartily recommend that Hellsing Ultimate is worth having on your shelf. There are too many problems with it to say that it truly deserves to be ranked with the best of the best, but I'll be damned if I don't try to get people to watch it at least once, because it's been a while since I've had this much fun with a series, ignoring, of course, the agonizing wait that I had for it anyways. At the time of this video, Hellsing Ultimate has been licensed and is available from Funimation Entertainment on Blu-ray and DVD, and at least up until episode 8, is available on their website for legal streaming if you happen to be part of their subscriber service. I can only hope that the final episodes will also be forthcoming on their site, but who knows at this point. Also, more than likely, the same episodes are also available on Hulu if you happen to live in the United States, though I cannot directly confirm this as Hulu does not function in Canada. For alternate anime recommendations, I point you towards two shows that not only have at least on par amounts of action, but generally just do better in terms of plot and characterization. Black Lagoon, both seasons, plus its OVA, as well as a little bit more of an older show called Berserk. Berserk, though, does have a remade film series, though at this time I cannot vouch for how good or bad that may be, so this recommendation is specifically for the original television series. Let me know what you think of the ending of that, by the by. It's a bit of a doozy, but between those two, you should hopefully find something to your liking. And that's it for me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, please consider going and checking out my Patreon page. And if you feel it within your heart to do so, also consider donating. Very special thanks to Dark Crow the First for donating already. Yes, a very dark name you have there, Crow the First. Yes. Good. And until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.